totally like the wrong time, the wrong day, the wrong time of day. I shouldn't even be here right now. It's sunny out. Well, it's brightly clouded out. I think it's supposed to rain later. I can't believe I'm here. I know it's wild. It's entirely just an experiment. It is just a chance to see, you know, like if my audience is different. So normally what happens is when I record these things, it's late. Like for the European crowd, of which I have a few listeners, it's like post midnight late. And I feel bad. I really do feel bad about it. And then when I try not to do it so late at night, well, which is 7 p.m. Eastern for me, a lot of people tell me, oh, well, Wednesday's no good for me. And then they give me a chain of reasons as to why Wednesday is no good. But they never get around to suggesting like, hey, man, it'd be really cool if you did this on like fill in the blank day. But they'll always tell me what's wrong rather than make a suggestion. So I've just sort of rolled the dice and we'll see who's here. Maybe nobody, maybe one person, maybe like, you know, everybody and their mother will be here. I have no idea. This is actually kind of terrifying because apparently, according to YouTube metrics, more people watch broadcasts live during the day than at any other time. They don't really watch them at night if you're watching straight from YouTube, just randomly in happenstance. You've got to know about them in advance, and then you click on them and all that shit. So this is going to be new. This is going to be, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. If this goes well, I'll tell you. If this goes well, maybe we'll try again next week to rule out it being a fluke, and then we'll go right back to business as usual. I have no idea. Let's find out how it goes, though. Here we go.
All right. Just remember what I've taught you.
What the fuck is that?
Hey, yo.
All right. Well, I guess we have no choice but to do this. So, hi, everybody. Hi. It's, in fact, such an irregular thing that my little counter for audience people hasn't reset since the last time I used this. So I have no idea how many people are here. But hello, all of you from Twitch and YouTube and wherever else this is being broadcast. Apparently, I can live do my, like, from a podcast feed, but that confused me, that email. So instead, I'll just say hello to Twitch and hello to YouTube, and we'll do this. If you have no idea what the holy fuck you're watching or what you're listening to, because what you're watching is a static screen. Hi, I'm John. This is the Writer's Chat. This is where a guy whose job it is to help you write better, I'm a writing coach. I answer questions about all different kinds of writing and editing and publishing and querying and marketing and anything creative you could probably think of. It's nice. I love doing this. Normally, this is done on Wednesdays in the evenings after I have dinner, and I've sort of been burnt out by the course of my day. Only now you're getting me on a Tuesday in an afternoon where I've had, let's just call it politely, a capital D day. So hello. Hi. This is what I normally sound like, all fired up. Isn't that delightful for you? And if you have never been here before, oh boy, howdy, you're in for a treat, because I've got 13 questions of a variety of all different kinds of topics. Oh, and some of them you're going to love and some of them you're not going to like, and everywhere in between. Now, if you're watching this, wherever you're watching this, and you have a question, Whatever kind of question, even if you think it's a stupid question, even if you think I've answered it probably every day for 20 years, I want you to ask it because I want to help you. Because the whole point of this isn't just for me to yell into this microphone, which I love to do, but the whole point of this is for me to help you write better. It's for you to create your story, for you to put your book on a shelf, for you to succeed creatively. So for whatever reason, I'm doing this on a Tuesday goddamn afternoon. Wow. Okay. This is going to be one hell of a podcast after the fact, isn't it? Let's do that regular intro, though. Let's at least build some kind of structure so I know where the hell I am. Ladies and gentlemen, guys, gals, non-binary pals, friends, writers, makers, doers, dreamers, plotters, creatives, potato enthusiasts, casserole lovers, anybody who can truly appreciate good chilaquiles, desktop jockeys, pirates, anti-capitalists, anti-banks, anti-abolitionists, anti-moneyists, fine art photographers, anybody who can appreciate good black and white film use, chess players, sock fixers, cat toy vendors, Etsy shop havers, bottled water chuggers, joggers, hikers, anybody who ever notices that they have a cobweb in the corner of the room and then they can't stop staring at it. And most importantly, the comrades. Hello. Hi. Here we go. This is going to be a hell of a thing. There is no cup date. And that is primarily because I left my tea downstairs. And I didn't realize it until I turned the microphone on. So you're going to have to deal with me just having a bottle of water. I know we're all very disappointed, but I promise you, I will chug the hell out of that cup of tea because I literally just made it and it was perfect. So tea coming later. For now, bottled water. Oh, well, what are you going to do? Shall we go on to some questions? Shall we learn how to write better? I think we should. Let's do it. Question number 1. Man, they're trying to take my legs out from under me right away. What's the point in writing if all that happens is I get rejected? Okay, look. Okay. I don't know entirely who wrote this question. It was in the email from somebody whose username wasn't so much a racial slur as it was just a string of words that didn't entirely make sense. So it's probably an in-joke. So for now, we'll just have to agree that I don't know you. So I don't know which pronoun to assign to you. Suffice to say, I'm going to call you pal. Okay, pal, here we go. It's not the only thing that happens, getting rejected. It is a thing that happens, and it may feel like right now you are in the middle of a rejection streak. You are just getting rejected left, right, and center. And it can feel, based on a string of a few rejections, especially if you've only done like 3 submissions and you've gotten 3 rejections, you might look at that and go, I got 100% rejection rate. I'm a piece of shit. And you would be wrong. You would be entirely wrong. Because while, yes, these 3 submissions, or however many submissions you've made, did get rejected, that is not the sum total of all that you are, nor is it, a really valid indicator of the future. Think of it this way. A slot machine, you put the coin in, you pull the lever, the little things spin, and maybe you get coins and maybe you don't. It's not a constant thing. Every poll resets. Every poll. No matter what the systems tell you, no matter what random dudes with a lot of gold chains and chest hair say, every poll is a new shot. Every submission is a new attempt. Every submission is a new chance. So there is always a 50-50. It's one of the only binaries I like. It is a 50-50 chance that you'll get rejected or not. The point in writing is not, now look, let's come at this a different way. Let's just say, yeah, fine, sure, John, whatever. Okay, we're going to come at this, pal, a different way. Did you entirely write whatever the hell it is you're writing? Did you entirely write it just because you wanted it to be published? Is that what you wanted? You didn't write it because you like writing. You didn't write it because you want to share the story with people. You didn't write it because you enjoyed the idea. You didn't like it because you like being creative. You did it entirely because you want to slot into a corporate capitalist system that is just promoting commercial transaction of goods for cash. You did this entirely to get paid? Because if you did, fine. But let me tell you, there are other ways to get paid, and certainly get paid more and faster. So if you are looking at the point in writing and you're weighing it against, all I do is get rejected, you are weighing apples to oranges. You're weighing two things that don't normally stick together. The point in writing, or the point in filmmaking, or the point in taking pictures of your butt, or the point in writing a play, or the point in painting a picture, or the point in doodling in your sketchbook, is to express yourself in an effort to connect with another person on this planet. Now, maybe it's a person you know. Maybe it's a person you don't know. Maybe it's a person a generation from now. I don't know. But the point of being creative is not to make money. Not at all. Not even close. The point is to share some part of your human experience with another human who will go, I don't feel alone anymore. I've engaged with this piece of art. I've read this thing. I've seen this picture. I've done this thing. I've engaged with it. And now somebody gets me. I'm no longer alone. This material has helped me. You are producing a life raft. What are those things called? It looks like is it a lifesaver? Is that just what they're called? The round thing you toss to somebody who's fallen off a boat? You are making a life preserver, a lifesaver. You are saving someone's life. You are helping them feel less alone. You are pushing back against the tide of corporate crushing weight. You are helping connect humans. Now, whether you accept this responsibility fully or you blow it way the hell off, that's up to you. I have no control over that. I'm not you, but I'm going to tell you that the whole point in what you're doing is beyond just the simple, did I get, rejected or did I get published? It has very little to do with that because you can always publish your own stuff. You don't even need to go through Amazon. You can put it on your own website. You could make a QR code in Canva and it automate a whole system through PayHip or Gumroad. So why would you torture yourself by sitting around and saying, all I do is get rejected? There's no point in writing if all I'm going to do is getting rejected. That's like saying, I want to be an Olympic athlete, but I'm not good at this one event, so I'm never going to be an Olympic athlete. There are a ton of events in the Olympics. Just because you're not a great, bobsled person does not mean you couldn't grow up to become, an ice skater or a gymnast or a hurdler or a skeet shooter. Is biathlon still a thing from the Nazis? Whatever that might be. Like, you don't have to look at the way one method of publishing goes and use that to determine the trajectory of the rest of everything you're going to do. That's unhealthy. Please, pal, consider that the point in writing is because you love writing and you love connecting with other people. So if you're getting rejected, I'm sorry. And if you want to talk about the technical reasons why you're getting rejected, hey, anytime, I'm happy to do that. But by and large, the whole point of writing is to connect. Who gives a shit about rejection? I get that it's a big deal. I get that it sucks. I get that it's not what everybody wants. But don't let that temporary single thing overshadow the big picture, okay? Give that some thought. We're going to go on to the next question. Question 2. At what point should you realize the problem, whatever the problem is, isn't in the draft, but in the premise? Okay, look, we need to have a serious moment here because some of you were writing some stuff, beating your head against the wall, thinking that if you just rewrite a chapter, a scene, a character, an arc over and over and over and over again, eventually, somehow, magically, it's going to fix itself. The problem is that it's not in how you write it, but it's in what you're shaping as your idea. The premise was the problem. Now, that doesn't mean it's automatically bad. It just means that you need to think it further through. Maybe you need to add more parts to it. Maybe you need to find a better way of thinking about it, changing a word you use it to describe it in your head so that it's easier to move forward. If you're writing, if you're writing a romance novel, let's say, and you're describing the character's arc as not really romantic, and I'm not talking like, oh, we're exploring demi-romance or anything like that. I mean, like, you are writing a straightforward, whether it's LGBTQ plus or hetero romance, you are writing in a straight novel where somebody is falling in love with someone else. And the arc of that character doesn't really factor into that romance. They don't fall more in love. They don't find independence and realize they can go love the person they want to love. It's, their arc is over here doing this totally disconnected, disparate thing. It's not that the character needs a new name or that you need to set it in Vermont or add lasers or something. It's that you haven't thought through your premise. And that seems like something that's obvious to people, but you would be surprised the number of people who are like, I have this idea for a book. I have this idea for a book, and here's the character, and this is what they're going to do. And the minute I start asking them questions, okay, why are they doing this? What are they motivated to do? What's their goal? And once we get beyond, like, their goal is to get the magic MacGuffin, the doohickey, the thingamabob at the end of the quest. Why? Once we start poking around past the what and get into the how are they going to do it and the why they're doing it and the where and the when and the opposite and how everything fits together, all of a sudden they realize, oh, shit, I didn't really think about those parts. They were just eager to get into the writing because they had part of a great idea. They just need to get to the rest of the great idea. And a lot of writers, will sit down and say, well, I'll figure it out as I write. I appreciate that. I really do. But let's use a sports metaphor for a moment. If you wanted to get better at basketball, let's say, I like basketball quite a bit. If you wanted to get better at basketball, would you wait until you got into an organized game for you to figure out, like, oh shit, I guess I gotta dribble now? And you've never really gotten good at dribbling? Would you wait until it really matters to, like, figure out what to do with your elbow when you dribble? Or would you take 10 minutes before the game starts and figure out what to do with your hands? It's not necessarily a bad idea to figure it out on the page. It's kind of disorganized. It's part of the problem I'm talking about. And it doesn't necessarily lead to like an easy solution, because you might have to, like, dig a little through the writing and kind of take a couple pages to get your feet under you. And then you've got to edit it later and clean it up. And you're making things a little bit harder for yourself than otherwise. But if you just took some time and thought your shit through and thought about it, not because you're a bad person, not because you're terrible, just because you need to think some more because you're creating something. So think it all the way through, or think more. You'll get there. Now, at what point should you realize the problem is in the draft? There's no, like, one magic moment. It's been 22 minutes. I better think about the premise. It's more about the idea that, hey, I've been trying to do this draft thing for like 5 drafts now, for years, for months, for weeks, for minutes, and I'm not getting there. Why? And you just feel like, oh, I'll write another scene. I'll do the scene this way, and that's the vehicle for the problem. Fixing the vehicle doesn't change what the problem is. Go all the way back to, what am I writing? Why am I writing it? Who are these characters? What do they really want? Get past the plot. Got to get past the plot for this. Oh, well, they're trying to fight the bad guy. Nope. That's true. They are. I'm not saying that's wrong, but go deeper. Dig a little. Why do they want to fight this bad guy? Why not have somebody else fight this bad guy? Why this story? What are you trying to say? Get to the premise. Get past the plot. If you're struggling, this would be the point to realize that the problem's with the premise. If you're kind of shaky, this is where you deal with the premise. And you dig in a little bit. And maybe that means, yep, we're going to do another draft. Yep, maybe that means we got to redo the opening. That's fine. But the more solid and secure your premise, the more depth you have given it mentally, the more dimensions you can add to it on the page, the more you can describe it without just saying the same 2 sentences over and over and over again, the stronger it's going to be when it turns into that draft. This is why it's important to think all the way through everything. So at what point should you realize? When you're absolutely positively stalled out. But if you're looking for like a specific, everybody fits a universal thing, it does not exist. All right, on we go. Question number 3. Isn't it unrealistic for publishers and agents to want writers to have large audiences before they publish their book? Yes, it is unrealistic for publishers and agents, pimps, to want writers to have large audiences before they publish their book because, well, it's kind of hard to build a large audience around a thing that doesn't exist yet. You're building a lot of hype. You're playing a kind of fast and loose game with the idea of, well, one day when this thing takes off, oh, you watch out. You're going to want to get in on the ground floor. You are leveraging a lot of potential here. And for a lot of writers, their confidence and ego and hope doesn't hold out that long because it takes a while. They get intimidated. I get intimidated. It happens. But it is unrealistic for publishers and pimps to want writers to have those large audiences. Do you know why they want those large audiences in advance? So that they don't have to work so hard to build them. Because if you're automatically bringing the potential of, I'm going to make numbers up, 200 sales to the table, well, that means I, the publisher, don't have to try so hard to find 200 people. You're bringing it to me. You're making my life easier. And I, the publisher, like 2 things. 1, not spending money. And 2, selling books usually in that order. But it is unrealistic because one of the things this industry, whether it's self-publishing or traditional publishing or anything else, one of the things this whole industry does not fucking do is tell regular people how to build an audience consistently. They'll try. They'll find lots of ways around it. They'll tell you all about how you need to have lead magnets, which are basically just sales funnel traps. They'll tell you all about how you have to be on social media, but then they won't tell you that the whole point of that is to not just get into inane hashtags and do hashtag writer lifts because that's just masturbating and waiting to pass on. Like that just eats time and accomplishes very little. Like they don't tell you how to build an audience. They just say, hey, go get one, which accomplishes very little. And then when you don't get a large enough one, yep, made air quotes, large enough one, they'll reject you. And yes, I don't care what social media has told you. If your audience isn't big enough, it won't work. Like a publisher has an expectation of, okay, you're trying to ask for this much, you're trying to sell this much, here's our quota, here are our numbers. You better bring me some numbers to back this up. You better bring me an audience. If you're a new author with a tiny ass audience, that is not going to encourage a publisher to cut you a large check because they are taking a lot of money on something that does not necessarily pay it back. That's not how this works. But it is unrealistic. If you want to go this route in publishing, I don't care what genre it is. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're writing. If you want to go this route, the 2 things you should be doing well in advance of you querying, and if you're hearing this now and you're already in the middle of querying, pump the brakes on future submissions. But the 2 things you need to be doing, 1, you need to be talking to other people who aren't writers and encouraging them to check out your work. And 2, you need to do more than just talk about how you're going to get published one day. You need to be a person on the internet, which is intimidating for people because you've got to be vulnerable. And that's hard and scary because you might get yelled at. There might be trolls. You might have to navigate some shit. You might have to learn things about yourself that you don't necessarily like. You might have to cope. You might have to not be special one day. But if you want to grow your audience, you got to show up every day and do more than just play the reindeer games and go along and just do the hashtags and retweet everything you see other people retweeting because you want to be in the group too. You got to make an effort to be a person that other human beings would want to connect with in whatever way, shape, or form beyond just selling your stuff. and you got to do it on more than one platform. And if this is starting to sound like, holy shit, John, this takes up an awful lot of my time and energy. Hey, guess what? The system is designed for that. They want this to eat up your time and energy. Why? Because that way you struggle with it. So that way you don't question it. So that way you just keep trying to do it. The system isn't built for your success. This system is built for your suppression, for your collapse. It's what they want. They want you to quietly, passively make a book, somehow make it good enough that it'll sell to the widest number of people possible, as fast as possible, with the least amount of problems, so that it can turn around and be sold over and over at the least amount of expense. And oh, by the way, you better have a large audience just eager, ravenous for this to happen, who were completely clueless as to what's happening, so that you can surprise them. So yes, very unrealistic. Yet here we are constantly throwing fuel on this fire because, oh boy, howdy, have you seen the number of people who swear that this avenue for publishing is how they're going to be, quote, legit? It's absurd. But yes, it is unrealistic, which is why you don't have to do it. You can build an audience. You can sell a book without them. It's a little different. It's harder in some ways and easier in others, but that's true of any path you take for publishing. But yeah, it's super unrealistic, and I'm sorry you're just discovering that. I would have told you sooner. That's my fault. But I hope you're able to build your audience all the same. On we go. Are there any questions from chat? Now I'm going to go over here and look at this window because it's got people in it, and I want to make sure everybody's okay. Hi, hello. There will be tea later. That is true. And yes, I am fired up because I'm nervous. This is what happens when I'm nervous in the middle of the day. So yeah, totally fired up. I am going to have some water though, because yeah. Are there any questions about anything? Whether it's a previous question, a different question, random shit, whatever. Fire away if you have them. I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, we're going to move on. That water is not as cold as I expected. I feel a little betrayed. Shall we move on? Are we good? I can't see if you're nodding. I have no idea. So I'm going to wait like a couple seconds because I know there's like a 6-second delay for whatever reason, and we'll go from there. I'm going to move this damn button closer so I'm not reaching over a cat. Yes, this is, we are interrupting Cat Sun session because there's this big ass window here that I'm sitting next to, and the light is perfect, even though it's cloudy, and it is hitting half the desk. So there is a cat perched, sprawled right here. So whatever. We're working around the cat, you guys. Questions? Else we'll keep moving. Didn't even wake up. Jesus. Here we go. Question number 4. What are the 2 tracks with protagonists? Okay, we're going to get a little crunchy here. This gets a little nerdy. I'm going to try and do this in the least nerdy way possible. When your story is developing, whatever it is, when you have scenes underway, you have 2 tracks. There are 2 sort of ribbons, 2 currents, 2 horizontal timelines, for lack of a better descriptor, that move for your protagonist. Your main character is doing stuff. So that's going to be all their actions. That moves in forward productive time, because it's always advancing in our story unless we say otherwise. So the character's actions, that's 1 track. That's all the stuff they do. That's the time it happens in. That's the consequences. That's all that physical passage of time and material related to it. So that's me pressing keys, hitting spacebar, talking into the mic, you hearing it, the computer doing computer things, all that stuff. The passage of time is ongoing. The events are happening sequentially. This after this, after this, after this, after this. 1 track. There's a 2nd track, though. And this track has the ability to interrupt the flow of time. This is the track where our character has thoughts or has feelings or memory or we get deep in their head. This is called the internal track. One track's called the external. That's where all the shit happens. The other track is the internal track. Once we jump to the internal track, time in the external track is functionally paused. It may or may not be. It's convenient to what the story needs. So, for instance, if you have a character and they are looking through their grandma's attic, and then all of a sudden they find this photo. Doesn't matter what the photo is of. But this photo causes them to remember the situation where the photo was taken. So you jump into a flashback. The external track of this scene or this chapter or whatever is them going through the attic and finding the photo. Once they find the photo, and we're supposed to move into segue, we've paused that external track. Because our next sentence, our next two sentences, our next paragraph, whatever, is the segue, however messy or smooth, into the flashback. And once we're in the flashback, we've interrupted the external track because now we are more or less in the liminal mental emotional space of our character because they're remembering it, or they're imagining it, or they're projecting it. And this can take however long it needs to. If you need a 2-paragraph flashback, great. If you need a 10-page flashback, fantastic. If you need a book-length flashback, delightful. Whatever you need to do. That internal thinking, feeling track takes as long as it takes. And whether it describes the photo or the feelings or the memories or the specifics, even if it's just a name check, even if it's just, that picture of Uncle Bob and Phyllis, great. Even if it's just that, and then we get right back to the other track, that's fine. But our 2 tracks are external, actions and movements and consequences and engaging with the physical world, but also our internal track, how we think and how we feel. And the internal track will retain, 9 times out of 10, there's always exceptions, will retain the ability to pause the external track to get across whatever it needs to get across. This is separate from all that stuff like exposition. It's a separate thing. This just pertains to what the characters do versus what they think and feel. And when I say do, I also mean like talk, like say, because that's something they're doing. They're doing the dialogue. You can take as long as you want to take with that internal track. So if your character has feelings, how do they feel about what's going on? How do they feel about their grandma's attic? How do they feel about this photo? How do they feel about being stuck on a hot summer's day when all their other friends are outside playing at the pool and they're stuck cleaning because they got grounded? How does the character feel about it? This is the track to explore that in. Generally, narratively, from an outline picture, sort of like how do I do this kind of thing? You think about it in terms of 2 horizontal timelines, left to right. It's from the start of the book, page 1, all the way down to the last page of the last chapter. The physical track is always going to be marked by any kind of indicator of physical action. Maybe it's one action at a time. Character, wakes up, gets out of bed, walks to the door. You can take it down that granularly or skip ahead to wakes up, gets yelled at, gets in trouble, goes to the attic. Big, small, doesn't really matter the level of zoom on this timeline. It's just a matter of accounting for all the shit they're doing. The internal stuff is only really going to crop up when you need. Because while it's constant, it's that hopefully they're, while they're walking from here to there, while they're getting out of bed, they're thinking and feeling stuff. But, but we don't really care. We only care about that internal track when it's relevant to the story. So we only tag into that internal track. We only go into that internal track when we need to, but we stay there as long as we want. And then we go back and back and forth and back and forth. And these 2 tracks braid together to develop and deepen our character so that it's not just our character does stuff, because that's how we tell stories to children. And maybe when we add an internal, it's very simplistic. John was angry that the dragon ate all the cheese. And then we move back to actions. But if we want to add nuance and depth, then we're going to braid these 2 tracks more effectively. Make sense? Cool. Super useful, super helpful. This is how you get from external actions to internal thoughts and smooth out those segues. Good question. On we go. Question number 5. I wrote the same chapter 2 times in 2 different ways. How do I know which is better? I get this kind of question a lot. Which one is better? Which one is right? And my answer is always the same. Which do you like more? Which do you like more? You're the author. It doesn't matter. Not to me. I'm the reader. Even if I was the coach or the editor, it still doesn't matter to me. It's what you want. So you get to pick. Now, I hate to tell you this, you can't pick the wrong one because you're in charge of the decision to pick something. So whichever you pick is the right one until you change your mind. This isn't so much about like, roll the dice, see what you get. This is, I like this one. Let's use it. And then we move on from there until we get to a point where it's like, hey, you know what? I'm having second doubts. Let's put the other one in. Great. Support you either way. You get to decide. You're in charge. Writing is the act of making decisions. So just make a decision. It literally cannot be wrong. You can always change it, fix it, come up with a third version later. You always have that ability. I'm sorry you had to do like 2 radical rewrites. That might have been exhausting. But by and large, you get to do whatever you want. Just pick one. It'll be fine. The reader's going to like it. Just pick it. And on we go. Okay? Next question. Question number 6. I need another mouthful of water. Question number 6. My writing partner isn't taking writing seriously enough, and we never seem to make any progress on our book. What can I do? Oh boy. This is the number one reason why writing partnerships fall apart. And it comes from a lack of communication. One writer just likes to write. It's a hobby to them. They don't really want to go through the trouble of publishing. They're usually afraid of rejection of some kind, so they don't really want to push it too far, and they're worried about how somebody else would see them or think of them or, comment on what they do. Like, they don't want to be judged in some way. So to them, it's just sort of this, it's a hobby. It's no big deal. Like, I never thought I'd be good enough to publish or anything like that. They find some reason or set of reasons to play small and hold themselves back. Okay. Whereas somebody else is driven. Somebody else is, no, we're getting published. I want to be a published author. This is how I want to do it. I want to do it with you, friend, because I like you and I like this idea and I like working together. And when that discrepancy both isn't communicated, isn't, worked on, the supportive person lifting the other person up to help them deal or work through their sense of judgment or fear, you end up in a situation where one writing partner is doing a lot of the heavy lifting and the other one's pretty much just fucking around. This is an unpleasant situation because it leads to one writing partner really being freaked out and unable to communicate why they're fucking around, not taking it seriously, and somebody else who feels really taken advantage of or really frustrated by their lack of progress. If it's happening to you, I'm sorry. It's crap. I've been in those situations. I've been both of those people for various times and reasons. So you just kind of, you just what can you do? You can talk about it. Worst case scenario, I do see your question. I'm coming to your question. Worst case scenario is that you tell them, hey, if you want out, hop on out. And you let them go. And it's hard and it's difficult, but you let them go. And maybe that means you scrap the project. Maybe it means you fully take over. Maybe it means you change the roles somewhat so that they're the idea person with much lower stakes and you're going to handle the writing. But what you do is you talk it through. And if that means you've got to like stand up and be a little confrontational, not like, fuck you and everything you wrote in on, but more like, hey, I think we've got a problem here. Like, I'm trying to go in this direction and I see you not. What's up? And having some kind of back and forth through that. And just talk it through and see if your goals are aligned. And then maybe you got to scale back your schedule. Maybe you're pushing too hard. And they're freaked out. Maybe they need to kind of admit, like, hey, they're kind of half-assing it because they don't know what's coming. So maybe we need to work together to walk it through. But go talk to them. Don't just throw your hands up and freak out. Just go talk to them. Okay? Great question. Now, I want to answer this question. What are your I'm going to put it up on the screen. What are your thoughts on the woke Hollywood writers finally getting their shit thrown back in their face? Well, I'm not entirely sure. I'll say this. I think any group of people who are unhappy with the situation they're in should have the ability to strike. I think they should have the ability to get paid for the work they do. I think anybody who's unhappy with their situation should affect or act in such a way as to make changes to their situation. If, for instance, you are unhappy with the fact that I'm not responding to the bait of calling it woke or having their shit thrown back in their face, if you're upset I'm not, engaging with that, well, then you have the option to leave. It's totally fine. Don't care. But I think if you're unhappy in your situation, you should make an effort to change it. Now, whether or not it's woke, it's not. They're just people who are trying to make stuff, tell stories, and they're getting hosed by people who don't want to share money with them. And they have a right to that money because they're the one doing the work. And you're not going to get material down the road. Like the whole chain of production stops if the writers don't write. So I fully support the strike. And if you want to go have a stroke about it, well, you're welcome to do so. But in terms of having it thrown back in their face, I don't know. I think anybody who's seen 97% with the SAG-AFTRA vote, I think the strike's pretty effective so far. I'm sorry that it's stopped a lot of productions because I, as a consumer of media, certainly would really like to get another season of a show I like or another piece of content. Or I like that stuff. I view these things. I dig it. But, it's... I think people should strike. I think unions should be stronger. I think everybody benefits that way. That's just me. Any other questions? Else we will move on. Question number 7. How are there so many writers who are bestsellers on Amazon if their sales rankings are so low? Well, did you know you can buy the bestseller tag, the little orange flag? Did you know you can pay money for that? I'm not quite sure to whom you make that purchase, but you can purchase it. The system's rigged, and bestsellers fairly toothless because the pool from which you are drawing your bestsellerness is really vague. Like, if we're 10 people and 9 people haven't sold a thing and one person sold one, well, then that one person is the best seller. But you can't compare the bestseller in, let me think of a thing. Bestseller in bottle openers is a different bestseller than a bestseller in romance novels. Not only because it's bottle openers versus novels, but also because the numbers are totally different. So how are so many writers bestsellers on Amazon? It's because Amazon and other people are leveraging the idea of what it means to be a bestseller as an indicator of quality. I just sold a lot, so therefore it must be very good, even if their sales ranking is so low, because a lot of sales ranking can be artificially inflated by bots or third-party vendors. The Amazon algorithm swears up and down. Part of it's mysterious, but part of it swears up and down that sales ranking matters. But sales ranking is really, really flexible and fluid because sales ranking is not as accurately reported to the minute as one might expect. It's not a live feed number anymore. So it's real, like, up and down. One day your sales ranking is this, the next day is that, and you don't really get a sense of why. Bestseller is a toothless title that has more emotional impact than credible, like, productive impact. And a lot of writers just pay for it and move on with their day. Because at the end of the day, it's about hitting customers. It's about doing the capitalism. So whatever they need to do to make that happen, they do, and they make that happen. Not every bestseller is a good book. Once you're able to divorce good from bestseller, it just becomes another word in a sales pitch. Sorry, I wish I had a better answer, but that's just how it is. Question number 8. What would it take for you, that meaning me, to market my book for me? I hate marketing and you're good at it. Well, thank you. I don't think I'm very good at it, but I have, skills and stuff. But yeah, I can market. I'm effective at it. What would it take for me to do your marketing? Oh, a minimum of $3,500 US cash, please. Because yeah, 3,500 minimum, somewhere in the 35 to 5K range, please. That's what it used to be for when I was the writer next door and did the writer next door marketing. 35 to 5 was my range, no matter what, because it takes an enormous amount of time. I might be good at it, but there's no, to do that eats into the time I would do other things in. So I'd like to be paid for my time. Start at 35 and let's work our way up. Now here's a great question. Hang on, let's put this on the screen. What is your opinion on the cozy horror discourse, i.e. the call for cozy horror? Oh, Matt. I hate to tell you this. I don't like cozy horror. Now, that's different than me not liking cozy mystery. I don't like cozy mystery because I think the stakes are too low. I don't like cozy horror because it seems very antithetical in construction. So the whole point of a cozy is a story that generates more comfort than risk. And the whole point of a cozy is an easy read that is of a low to moderate stakes with a high reward and comparatively a lower effort plot, because it's designed to be just sort of churned and burned, read and moved on to the next one. This is why cozy series are usually like extended length series of like 8, 10, 12, 15, however many books, as opposed to like a more straightforward series, which is a trilogy or a quadrilogy. I'm not talking about like the corpus or like the canon. I'm looking at specific, just general terminology. Cozy is safe. Cozy is comfort. Cozy is the edges rounded off. It's really hard to get to the space of true horror, true emotional engagement with horror, true horror in terms of any of the flavors of horror we would recognize, but whether that's slasher, supernatural, monster, predator, violent, psychological, gothic, cosmic, whatever. It's really hard to get into those spaces and develop it to the degree you need to develop it if you've rounded the edges off with a cozy. Like, a plush Cthulhu is not the same as Cthulhu rising from the ocean. The murderous killer roaming the high school with the rusted weed whacker or hedge trimmer from the 70s is one kind of menace, as opposed to the serial killer roaming the high school carrying a Nerf bat. Or a foam, let's not even use a Nerf bat, a large Swiffer duster. If you round the edges off, you lose potential. And if you round the edges off too much, yeah, you get safe, you get cozy. It's a nice read, but you're going to lose all that stuff that evokes and provokes and engages your reader. So I don't think, my gut feeling is that cozy horror is going to become a thing because there are segments of the publishing population who want more things to read so that they can get paid, so that there can be books, so that they can take 10%, pimps, or they can, in other ways create a niche and get attention for that. But in terms of it being horror, I think it'll just be, you know, sort of the cozy section. Stories that are a little bit too tame. Stories with the retainers still in. Stories with the foam on the corners and the little plugs in the outlets. I think horror should, by design, go to the places that cozies don't. And I think cozy horror is too soft. No, you haven't missed the cup date. There wasn't a cup date. My tea is downstairs. I've got a bottle of water. Because I was losing track of time and I was looking some stuff up and it just didn't. My bad. So I can tell you, though, that the tea downstairs is Scottish and caffeinated to shit. I was really looking forward to it, but I put it down and I left the room and I left it there. And by the time I realized I didn't have it with me, the microphone was already on. So you didn't miss the cup date. I just don't have one. I think I've answered the cozy horror, like, just conceptually bothers me. But I am a cranky old leftist. I am a cranky man who I like things changing, but I don't like things changing in weak, tepid ways. Cozy horror seems very centrist to me. It seems very blah to me, and I want it to be horror. I am not a typical horror reader, but I know people love horror and I want them to find satisfying material. It does feel definitionally wrong. Yes. It seems like we've taken two things that don't go together, mashed them together, and hoped it caught on. I don't think at all it's like New Adult, where we have a genuine segment of the population that needs, you know, attention or has stories to tell. I think it's more like, hey, let's just slap this stuff together. Cozy horror to me is Victorian style ghost stories. No, those are ghost stories. You're using cozy in a personal sense. I like Victorian ghost stories. They make me feel good. It's cozy. It's comforting. Victorian style ghost stories can still be pretty horrific because you can still have people, like, their hair can go white. They can fall down a flight of stairs. They can light their dress on fire. They can die of fright. It won't be as dramatic as having paragraphs about their jaws contorting or their bodies afflicted with the rickets or something. But how do I say this? Cozy horror to me makes me think about those kids who tried really hard to be emo and straight edge, but never really got past the black X marker on the hands, right? Like they knew the assignment, or they knew like an idea of the assignment, but they didn't really like commit. I don't like cozy horror is what I'm saying. On we go to the next. By the way, it's still $3,500 to $5,000 to have me market your book. If you have that, hey, come talk to me. On we go. Question number 9. What happens if I never earn out my advance? Okay, here's what happens. Two things are going to happen off the top of my head. One, you're going to get an email from your publisher who's going to tell you, hey, sales have slowed. We, the publisher, are going to need you to do some more marketing. And 2, no matter what you say, they're going to start putting some wheels in motion to augment, not replace, augment whatever you're about to do. They're going to count on you to do the like 60-40 split in terms of new, fresh, kick in the pants marketing. Very rarely will you find a publisher who's going to take that 60 on and give you the 40. Most of the time, because it would cost them money. Publishers aren't in the business of spending money. So they're going to try and push the book hard somehow. Put it on a newsletter chain, get an interview going, something, right? If that still doesn't do it, and the book is selling well, but it's very slow to get, to really sell well, like it's consistent but not deep, and you don't really earn your advance, but it's time to write the next book, they'll probably move you on to the next book. Let's say you sign for multiple books, probably just one book next in the deal, and consider yourself on thin ice. Well, your first book hasn't earned out yet, but your second book, let's push harder behind it and get it moving. If it's a one book deal and it isn't really earning and marketing hasn't really allowed it to catch on, they'll drop you. Earning out your advance takes time, like months and years time, because publishers don't really want you to earn out their advance. Again, see the previous comment about them spending money. So what you're left with is the situation where you're always going to chase that. You're always going to try and get more sales, which means more marketing is going to fall on you, which means it's on you to do more work, while everybody else tells you that it's really important that you do all that work. But if you never earn out and you're not really selling well, now if you're selling well but not earning out, you're just a cog in the machine, and that's how the machine works. But if you're selling well, if you're selling poorly and you're not earning out, then they'll drop you, because they'll go find somebody else who could sell well but not necessarily earn out. Here's your note. Hang on. Some small publishers do want you to earn out because they can turn that into marketing success. We have all these successful authors. Come read our shit. Because that's a great marketing push. But at the same time, publishers will gripe that it's costing them money. So they want to keep you partially unearned and forever chasing the carrot on a stick, if that makes sense. But it's very likely that you'll get into a situation down the road where you can't possibly earn out over the same amount of time. And then you're just sort of stuck. And then you get dropped, and then the cycle repeats for somebody else, and you move on. If you do get dropped, by the way, and the rights come back to you, because if you get dropped and the rights don't come back, you're sunk. You just have to go move on to a new thing. But if the rights come back to you and you're dropped, you are free to do what the hell ever. I would strongly encourage you to find a different avenue to put your stuff out in. But that's what happens if you don't earn out. Are there any other questions about anything? I just looked down at my phone and everything all blew up with notifications. So give me a second while I skim real quick. But please, if you have questions, fire away. Questions? Yes, no? Big, small? Snack-based? Not snack-based? Yes, person on Twitter who tweeted me just like minutes ago. Yes, this will totally be a podcast. It'll go straight out on the feed, just like it normally does on Wednesdays. I'm not holding this over until Wednesday. It's going to go straight out the minute I'm done. Okay? Don't worry. You'll get it in your ears. By the way, if you have no idea what that is, anywhere you get your pods, anywhere they are casted to you, just search for John Helps You Write Better. You will get the backlog archive, not only of the daily podcast, but also every chat and stream. Not ever, because it only started at I think it started last year. But you'll find a ton of stuff. Everything remains on the YouTube channel, though. Other questions, issues, etc. Else, we march on. One thing I've noticed, when it's not tea, I'm not drinking enough. That's a problem. Question 10. I just got scammed by a, air quotes, editor. I wish I had one of the things that PCs do. You can voice mod. You can add echo and reverb and stuff. I would love that right now when I say editor. No, stop it.
The first one is Dr. Elsie's Precious Cat.
There. We'd unplug that right away. I'd put echo, I'd put reverb, I'd do things, So just imagine something tremendous when I say editor. I got scammed by an editor, in air quotes. What can I do? Well, I have no details for this, so I don't entirely know to what degree you got scammed. If you gave your work to someone and paid them, and then they ran off with the money, what you can do, possibly, is try and pursue them to get the money back, whether that's an actual legal issue or whether that's just a social media campaign. That is one avenue for you. If you gave your manuscript and some money to someone and they gave you advice, they gave you notes, they gave you feedback, they gave you something that absolutely positively did nothing for you, made your work worse, sucked, was hard to understand, made writing not fun. And I don't mean like they said things were tough and you got to work a little harder. I mean like they soured you on the entirety of everything. One, don't go back to them again. You can go find someone else who will legitimately help you. You don't have to stick with them just because, you got feedback and you're unhappy. Like if you get feedback from somebody and they're not your cup. Now, I don't mean like the feedback's hard to hear, like, hey, you need to work on your plot. That's not a reason to run away. That's a reason for you to work on your plot. But if like they didn't deliver what you expected, they didn't help in some substantial way, and you feel taken advantage of, one, stop engaging with them. Two, go tell other people, hey, don't use this editor. Three, eat your loss a little bit and move on. I know that's very difficult. I know that's very frustrating, but there are loads of big giant air quotes editors out there who have a passing training, a passing notion of grammar, and a passing notion of, I guess I kind of know what I like in stories, so I can give feedback and critique, but they lack fundamental training. Like, they're not going to get into the 2 tracks of protagonist development. They're not going to, dive deep on theme. They're not going to give you the story triangle. They're not going to, give you the 4 rules of world building or anything like that. They're just going to tell you like, hey, you have too many commas and that's not a word. Like, they're going to do the baseline copy work and call themselves an editor and call it a day. I'm sorry you got scammed. That sucks. But all the same, your resources or your recourse is fairly limited. Did you have a contract? If you had a contract, your contract should lay out what you can do and how you should be able to do it. If you didn't have a contract, well, for the future, always make sure you have a contract. And 2, don't use them again. I'm so sorry. Apparently, over the last week or so, there's been a rash of people calling themselves editors who took the money and dipped, who just like skedaddled on some authors. And it kind of brought this discourse back up. And I'm real sorry. I'm super sorry because that's shitty to do. But it's not your fault. You didn't know. You thought you were getting help. I'm going to tell you. If you're ever in a situation where you're not getting the help you think you need and you're throwing money at this thing and you're dealing with this thing, but you don't feel like you're making progress, it is totally 1000% okay to go take your work elsewhere and go get better help. You deserve it. That's what you can do. Great question. On we go. More water. Question 11. How do I find that balance between professional and personal in a query? Ooh, okay. How do I explain this? So a query letter is fundamentally, first and foremost, a marketing device. It's designed to get you to read the manuscript. Period. That's it. It doesn't matter beyond that. It's just there to get you to read this thing first and then go, ooh, I want more information. And the only way to get more information is to read the manuscript. Period. That's the process. To do that, you need to engage damn near every tool in your creative toolbox to make your manuscript conceptually and productively sound interesting. So you're going to want to strike a professional tone when it's time to be professional. And you're talking about the word count, you're talking about the genre, and you're talking about the themes, and you're talking about, genealogy for your book or what's inspired you to write or how you feel about this or how you feel about that. But you're also going to want to strike that personal tone, not because you're going to talk about yourself so much, but because you're going to use that same level of emotional connectivity to describe what your characters and the world and the plot go through. Because if we just come at this entirely sterile and very, very professional, we're going to suck some amount of the life out of the query, and it has the potential to make our story less engaging. We don't want that. We instead want something nice, neat, organized, and appealing. It's not that professional and personal are these two super disparate things, and like Ghostbusters, we can't cross the streams. It's instead that there are times to do one and times to do the other, and being able to toggle between the two help make a query more evocative and more engaging. And sometimes it's the same stream just out of construction. You can have a personal, professional, line of development in your query. You can write a query paragraph that talks about your main character and how they're struggling to get through this or dealing with that in a way that comes across as professional, meaning it comes across that you know what the hell you're talking about, but also personal in a way that somebody else can relate to it. Don't just hear professional and think like asshole with their shirt tucked in or elbow patches or some nerd in a suit. Think instead professional, confident, organized, knowledgeable. Sure. Personal is just relatable, conversational, relaxed, fluid. Professional, personal, fuse them together to talk about your work. How do you find the balance? Practice. Write a buttload of queries. Even queries that you'll never submit. Just practice writing them. What if I talked about my story this way? What if I talked about my story that way? What if I started with this element? What if I started with that element? What if I did this? What if I did that? Come at the story a bunch of different ways. Get comfortable talking about your book as a story, but also talking about it in terms of it being a product. And you will find your best way to query, because there is no one universal way. There's just the way that works best for you. Finding that way comes from practice. So practice. And it's not always a 50-50 balance. I do want to make that clear right now. It's not 50-50. Don't think of it in terms of 50-50. Think of it in terms of like salad dressing. We want to shake the bottle before we use it. We want to incorporate and mix everything together. So sometimes it's a little bit of this and sometimes it's a little bit of that, but it's always salad dressing. Sometimes you want to be this, sometimes you want to be that. Shake well and use. Maybe balance isn't the right word in this question, but practice, as with anything in a query. Practice, rehearsals, attempts, failures, successes, dry runs, whatever you want to call them. Just write more queries. And you will figure out how best you sound to talk about whatever it is you're doing. On we go. Question 12. Is it better to write in a fusion of two popular genres or in a single popular genre? I'm making a face, and I know that's terrible for an audio thing, but better is a word that's throwing me here. Because better relative to what? Better like you're going to have a better time writing? Maybe you've picked two genres that you know the conventions of and the constructions of very, very well. So you have no problems picking and choosing and subverting as you need. Maybe you don't. Maybe you've picked two things that are popular that you don't necessarily have a lot of comfort with or experience with, so it's not necessarily going to be a great writing time for you? Or are we talking better in terms of what's going to be more successful to sell? Which is something that I can't answer based on how you're drafting. It's not It's not the same thing. If you're in the middle of a first draft, I can't tell you if that book is after, 2 drafts from now, if it's going to be a bestseller. That's not how this works. I can tell you that how you're writing will affect how the rest of the draft will go, or that based on how you're writing, what problems you'll run into in the course of drafting, however many times you draft. But I can't say for certain, because you put a dragon in here, you're going to have a terrible time. Like it does not work that way. If you're writing in a single genre, and again, I'm not sure what genre it is, but if it's single and popular versus half and half of 2 and popular, what's better out of this whole situation is to write the story you would want to read and write it well enough that other people would also like to read it. So whether you are crossing 2 genres or if you're a Patreon person, we talk about this this coming Friday, discovering one genre within another genre. It's called Discovered Genres. Or if you're just going to have one genre and stick to it, whatever is going to give you the most freedom, the most comfort, the most excitement, the most enthusiasm to produce the work consistently in a disciplined, organized fashion, that's what you want to write. So if you're happy with 2 genres and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, go for it. If you just want to stick to one, great, do it. There's no one right way. This is especially true if we're talking sales potential, because audiences are very fluid things. So I couldn't tell you, but the better option is always going to be what's going to help you write to the best of your ability. Good question. Sorry I didn't have a more intense answer. Shall we finish this thing up with our 13th question? I'm going to get one more mouthful of water. Question 13. You get a time machine and travel back to meet yourself when you were just starting out as a writing coach. Oh, geez. Okay. What 3 things do you tell yourself? Oh God. Okay. I think one of the first things has to be, please don't drink so much during the day. When I got started as a writing coach, I spent most of my time drunk. It was a great way to pass the time. It was a great way to reduce my anxiety and feel like I fit in with everybody else. And it was a way to sort of become notorious. That's John. He's probably drunk. So first thing I would do, no matter what, is just don't drink so much during the day. The rest of the drug habit and addiction, if older me came to younger me and said, hey, stop doing drugs, younger me would have beat the shit out of older me. So that's a non-starter. So instead, just drink less during the daylight hours. 2, second thing I would tell myself is that it's okay to trust yourself when things feel messy. And if you get a sense that it's a bad situation, you don't have to try and save it in order to make it better. Like, if the plane is crashing, you don't have to suddenly try and hyper steer the plane if it's that far gone. I spent a lot of time as an early writing coach throwing way too much energy into situations and clients and books that were never, ever going to go anywhere. Because I wanted to help people. I wanted to see everybody have the excitement of the writers who publish books and get things on shelves and everything. I wanted everybody to feel that good. And I was naive, foolhardy, to think that if I just worked harder, if I just spent an extra 5 minutes, if I just, found a deeper cut of a reference to make, or if I dug into a library and found older source material, I could get every single writer, no matter their level of experience, no matter what they were writing, no matter how far they were, what kind of progress they were making or anything like that, no matter what, I could homogenize everything and get everybody up to that bestseller style, discipline, focus, and level as fast as possible. And no, just that's not how that works. It is a great way to frustrate yourself as a writing coach, and it is a great way to completely sort of obliterate other people's writing skills. When you're trying to homogenize everybody and get everybody on the same page, writing the same way, it completely overlooks the fact that people are different from one another and they have different strengths, different weaknesses, different problems, different challenges, different everything. And I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to engage with it. So it put me in a lot of situations where I was always trying to do the same thing, even when I know it was a lost cause. And then when it would crash and burn, I'd blame myself. Had I just bailed out, had I just been like, you know what, I'm leaving this situation. I don't care if it'll, hose my finances or mess me up for a month and make me sad or anything like that. I should have learned earlier that it's okay to walk away sometimes. Third thing. I'm thinking. Give me a second. Third thing. How deep do I want to go on a Tuesday afternoon? Yeah, fuck it. Let's go. Third thing I would tell myself to do is try, especially starting out. Because now I'm older and I'm paying the price for being somebody who's scared to try. I most definitely at 20 something was absolutely afraid to fail because holy shit, I can't fail. I haven't done anything else. But instead of like figuring out failure along the way, my solution to, well, I don't want to fail is if I never do anything, there won't be anything to fail. And that I am 99% certain as I sit here today on this Tuesday, I am 99% certain that is the reason why I'm in the position I'm in, why I'm struggling to eat on a regular basis, why I'm struggling to pay bills, why I'm not in a better position, why I don't have the things I want or a life the way I want it. I think it's because I'm in the middle of learning as I tell you this conversation, as we have this conversation, I'm in the middle of learning that you have to try and that there is a certain amount of risk and that there is a certain amount of failure packaged into things. And other writers will have it because they're afraid to go out there and see what happens because the response might be negative. And I have it because, oh my God, I might go out there and market myself and say, hey, I'm a writing coach. And people will be like, what the fuck's a writing coach? Why would I need one of those? And my answer was almost always, and still is almost always defiant. Well, fuck you. I'll tell you why. Here's why. Or resigned. Oh, you're right. You don't need one. And I'd slink away. But I got into this pattern in my early 20s. Drugs didn't help this, but I got into a pattern in my early 20s where instead of trying stuff, I just didn't. I'd say it was a good idea. I'd see other people doing it. I'd get very jealous that they were succeeding, but I myself would not do it because it seemed scary because I might fail. And I missed out on early YouTube, early podcasting. I missed out on satellite radio jobs. I missed out on professional news reading, movies, film, television. I sank my 20s because I didn't try. I didn't date the people I wanted to date. I didn't live where I wanted to live. I didn't make the money I wanted to make because I was afraid, because I didn't try, because I didn't want to fail, because I didn't know how to grapple with that. And now I'm in my 40s. And I'm struggling more now than I struggled in my 20s. And it's terrible. I hate it. And I think if I went back and I talked to 20-year-old me, high, stoned, drunk, whatever, and I was able to at least express, hey, you know that thing we have where we're afraid to try because we feel like shit about ourselves because we think nobody respects what we do because we barely respect ourselves? You know that? Like, maybe if we worked on some of that shit rather than try and, like, go get laid or go deal with this person who we don't like, but they're the only one paying attention to us, so that's the only person we're going to engage with. Like, maybe if we just worked on some shit a little bit, we'd be in a better position post then. I love time travel questions like that because it makes me think. And out of anything else, what I want to do is make myself think so I can work it out, so I can express it to people so that I can get you guys thinking. That's why I do what I do. So yeah, what an amazing question. Now, there was a question that came in. So hang on. Let's go over here and read this question. As a writing coach, at what point do you take a step back from a client and say your goals aren't realistic? I'm assuming you mean to the client. And tell them their goals aren't realistic, or to accomplish this, you have to do X, Y, Z, or I can no longer help. At what point? Well, all right. So there's a difference between knowing that, because I know that from the first 5 minutes of the first meeting, versus me saying it, because I will give a client a real long lead. I will let them run themselves out a little bit. Maybe they just need a break. Maybe they're trying too hard. You know, maybe there are factors outside my control. So I have to kind of let them make some mistakes and fumble a little bit and go hands off. Like, oh, that's your shit. You get to deal with that for a minute. Because I'll always tell you, hey, if you want to accomplish whatever it is, here are your steps. That's like a main part of the job. If they don't do those steps, well, then what are we doing? Like, I'm happy to accept your money because I got bills to pay, man. But like if I tell you the steps and you don't do the steps, that's not on me. You can meet up with me every week and I'll retell you the same steps, but ultimately it's up to you if you want to do them. The part about your goals being unrealistic, that's a harder thing. Not necessarily a harder thing for me to talk about, because unrealistic goals falls into two categories. Either one, somebody doesn't understand the thing they're trying to do. Like they know the end goal, but not the path to it. So they think it's got extra steps or fewer steps. Or it's a matter of you're aiming for, this big, huge thing, but you don't have the talent to get it. A lot of people, when they talk about worrying whether or not their goals are realistic, is because they're looking at their talent. And talent can be developed. You can get better at a thing if you keep doing a thing, because that's how skills and brains work. So if you're worried that you haven't set a realistic goal, or you've got this goal that you can't achieve, the thing isn't to be like, well, you can't do that, fuck off. Because I know coaches like that. I know coaches that do that. And somehow they still have audiences that are rabid for them. I don't get that part. But the last thing I want to do is tell somebody like, oh, you're aiming too high. Like, slow down and go don't ski the 3 Black Diamond Trail. Go ski the bunny slope. My job is not to tell you where you should ski. My job is to tell you, hey, if you want to get to that 3 Black Diamond, it's the only skiing knowledge I know, the 3 Black Diamond slope, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to start on the bunny slope together, and we're going to build our way up. And if you want to do that, great, I'm here for you. And if not, that's up to you. And if you want to come back later, I'll be here. If after all that, people still are setting unrealistic goals, and they're not doing the steps, and they're not doing anything, I'll fire them. I don't like firing them. To date, I've only fired 7 clients. in over 20 years. I don't like doing it. I think for a lot of writers, it's about a conversation. I think it's a lot about appeasing is the wrong word, but soothing and calming their inflamed anxiety, telling them that it's okay, that, hey, I know you want to get like way over there to big publishing land, but right now we're here. We're on step 2. Step 1 you did. We're on step 2. We look ahead only to step 3. I know you want to get to step 1 million. I know you want to get way down the road, but we're here. So we just stay here. And we will stay here on this step for as long as you want, or until the heat death of the universe. Up to you. But we will hang right out here. And if we never get past this point, then we never get past that point. That's not on me. You're in charge. You're the client. You do that. I'm ready to go to step 3 whenever you are. But I want you to make sure you understand step 2 before we jump to 3. Because if we jump right to 1 billion, you will fuck this up. Not because you're a bad person, but because you don't have the steps done prior to this. And it's a hierarchy. It's a staircase. We can't go from the ground floor and jump up all the stairs and not expect to kind of float in the air or stumble. It builds on itself. The vast majority of my clients really don't set unrealistic goals. Sometimes they set uninformed goals. I want to sell 1,000 copies. Okay, how far are you? I've got 1 page of the first draft done. Cool. Here's what we need to do. And it's a long process between then and then. That's fine. But I have very seldom had clients that couldn't do the work. I've had plenty of clients who didn't want to. They found out that it was hard. They found out that it took time. They found out that they had to change something. They found out that they had to do a little bit of sweat. They found out that they were wrong. Like, oh, commas don't work this way, or semicolons don't work that way, or hey, this isn't how you build a story. And they don't like being wrong, so they disappear into the wind. I've had that happen quite a few times. Because not everybody likes hearing less than perfect advice. They like hearing, oh my God, you were amazing. But they don't like hearing, hey, here's some spots to work on. So they disappear. Which sucks, because I tend to think of that not in terms of, oh man, it's a real shame the world loses out on their story. And I think about it in terms of, oh man, how am I going to deal with the mortgage people now? But that's a me thing, not a them thing. But by and large, I don't like drawing lines in the sand with clients. I've had to, where it's been like, look, here are your steps. You know, you want to do them. If not, I'm out. I've had to do that. I don't like doing it. I haven't done it in a long time. But it happens. But the point at which I sit down and look at them and figure out, like, okay, here's what they want to do. How can we get them there based on what I see? I'm doing that in the middle of the first conversation. The minute I go, okay, what are we doing? What do you want to do? And how far are we? Those are the parameters I need. And everything else I intuit and source from their own conversations. Okay, I've read your pages. I know how you write. Okay, I've talked to you. I know your attitude about this or about that. Okay, and then I build a plan. And if they stick to that plan, great. And if they don't, great. Because at the end of the day, that's on them. I have learned painfully that my plan's fine. But if they don't show up for it, that's not a reflection of my plan. That's a reflection of them. And that's something they have to sit with, not me. I can't make somebody do it. I can make it simple. I can encourage it. I can break it into a bajillion steps. But I still can't make somebody sit down and do it. They got to at least meet me there. I can bully, I can joke, I can cajole, I can twist an arm, I can do a lot of things. I don't have the ability to make somebody do it. That's got to come from them. If they're really resistant, if they're really like, hey, I want all the reward, but I don't want to do any of the hard work. Usually what happens is whatever the course of the relationship, for lack of a better word, runs a natural course. And then when it's time to re-up, because let's say they buy a package of appointments or something, I never hear back from them. Or they say something like, oh, we have to reschedule. I'll let you know when I want, I'll let you know. I have to look at my schedule. I'll get back to you. And then they never do. And I hate to tell you this, after like 3 months, I kind of forget. I mean, I have notes, but they go into a file in this cabinet behind me. So I lose track of things until they pop back in and that name jogs something in my head. But again, it comes down to, do you want to do this? Are you serious about this? Will you commit to making the effort? Because I, John, am not in the fucking around business. I am not here to fuck around. This is my job. This is my passion. This is what I do better. Well, other than taking drugs, better than anything else I've ever done in my life. And I'm not going to let somebody fuck around with this, because this is what I do best. And I don't do many things. And I don't say that about myself very often. So I'm here to help you succeed. I'm here to help you do everything you want to do to the best of your ability. When you're ready to do that, let's go. I will lead the charge, shepherd you, cheerlead you, go with you, hold your hand, rally you, whatever you need. I'm here. But if I have to wait for you, I will wait as long as possible. But at some point, you got to sit down and go, do I really want to do this? Is this really what I want? For a lot of writers, it comes down to sometimes as simple as, I want to write, but I don't want to publish. Great. Let's take publishing off the table. Let's just talk about how to build a better story. For other people, it's, I like being creative, but I don't like writing. Great. Let's talk about how to transform your idea into a different medium. You're never without options. You just have to be willing to be honest about them. So that's what I do instead of trying to like draw a line in the sand, because I'm not that kind of dude. Used to be, but I also did a lot of drugs. So now I don't do either of those things. What an excellent question. Are there any others? And it got me to 90 minutes. Hot damn. As I put more water in my face. Other questions? Other issues, etc.? Da, 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 da. Yes? No? Are we good? Shall we go to the outro? All right. Let's go to the outro. Thank you to every single one of you who showed up today. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks to that guy who asked me about woke Hollywood. Thanks, man. I appreciate your question. Thanks for being here. It takes real balls to ask a question. Good job. Thanks to everybody for checking this out, for listening, for asking, for thinking. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me talk about time travel. Thanks for letting me talk about the 2 tracks of protagonists. Thanks for understanding about the lack of tea. Thank you so much. This went really fucking well. Like, I'm ecstatic about how well this went. Maybe we could do this again next week. Maybe this could be a Tuesday thing in the middle of the day. Who knows? It certainly got more energy out of me. That's for damn sure. So thanks for being here. Thank you so much. The next time I'm here, let me look at my calendar. Hell, let's do it. The next time I'll be here will be next Tuesday on June the 13th. It is very possible that I will be here before then. So the best thing you can do for news or information about that is jump over to johnhelpsyourwritebetter.com and sign up for the newsletter, because that'll tell you when I'm doing these sorts of things. If you liked this, if you enjoyed this, and you want to support more stuff like this, head over to patreon.com/johnhelpsyouwritebetter. And, you know, $2 a month, man. You can totally support everything I do and get tons of free stuff every week. There's that too. All right. Until then, take good care of yourselves. I love you. More power to more people. help yourselves, help the sick, help the poor, defend each other. Debt is a thing we made up, by the way. I don't know if you know that. We can just ignore it. Well, in theory, we could. We don't need prisons. Feel free to never eat peas or mayonnaise. Do brush your teeth, though. That is really important. And I will talk to you very, very soon. See ya!